blizzard. The Dangerous Snake and Reptile Club. We closed up the clubhouse, said goodbye to our friends, and headed off on our family vacation. The ride in the shipwreck was a long one. When we arrived in Lake County, my older brother Bobby found a dinosaur bone under the old bridge. Dad said it was probably a beef bone, but Bobby was sure that it had come from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. My younger brother Mike was soon standing in the creek, catching tadpoles and putting them in a big pickle jar. He figured that he could sell each for a quarter when they turned into frogs. I found a king snake on the gravel road. I held it for a while, and it didn't seem afraid of me, so I took it back to the cabin. "Wow," said Mike and Bobby when they saw the snake. I let Mike hold it. "And I'll trade you for some of my tadpoles for it," he said. "No way," I replied. I let Bobby hold it. "I'm not going to trade it for your dinosaur bone either," I told him. "Are you kidding?" he said. "You think I'd trade a rare dinosaur bone for this?" The vacation days passed quickly. Mike's pickle jar was full of tadpoles, so he helped Bobby look for dinosaur bones. Bobby asked me to help too, but I said no because I was having so much fun. I was the most popular kid around. Nobody called me Danny anymore. I was the kid with the snake. The time had come to leave Lake County and head for home. Bobby tried to convince Dad to stay longer so he could continue to hunt for dinosaur bones. He didn't get very far. "I hope you're not planning on taking the snake home with you," Mom said to me. But before I could answer, baby Ellen started screaming. Mom looked over at Dad, who was looking at his watch. It's fine with me," he said. "Everyone just get in the car." As the shipwreck pulled up to our house, our friends were there to greet us. We jumped out of the car. Craig, Billy, and Andy couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the treasures we had brought home. The next day, we started a new club. Andy and I drew a picture of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, showing where the bone had come from. Bobby and Craig built shelves for the bone, the snake, and the tadpoles. Mike and Billy painted a huge sign. We gave the clubhouse a brand new look, the Dangerous Snake and Reptile Club. Every day we'd go to the park and search for new creatures to add to our collection. Soon all the shelves were full of new newts, frogs, salamanders, garter snakes, and small lizards. Mike came up with a great idea. I bet we could charge a dime to see the inside of the clubhouse. The kid around the corner is telling everyone that we have a giant snake from Africa, said Billy. I know, because his mom got mad and called mine. Who wouldn't want to see a giant snake? On Saturday, we placed a sign on the front lawn that read, "See dangerous snakes, reptiles, and a real dinosaur bone, only 10 cents." In no time at all, we had a line of kids and even some parents. Mike and Craig sold tickets. Andy and Billy hid with me behind the clubhouse and made jungle noises. Bobby gave a tour of the Dangerous Snake and Reptile Club. When he picked up the king snake, he asked, "Does anyone want to hold it?" And at the end of the day, we made almost $2. At night, I kept the snake under my bed for safekeeping. One morning I woke up and the snake was gone. I searched every room and couldn't find it. Mom was having some friends over for lunch, so she was airing out the house. I guess the snake must have slipped outside. I quickly rounded up the guys. We spent the entire morning trying to find the snake. We finally gave up and figured it was long gone. A short time after Mom's friends showed up for lunch, we heard a loud scream coming from the house. Eek! I ran through the back door and into the living room. Sure enough, someone had found the snake. I grabbed the snake and ran past Mom, who was coming from the kitchen. The guys were waiting outside. Did anyone throw up? Asked Billy. Or get dizzy? Asked Mike. Or faint? Asked Andy. Or go crazy? Asked Bobby. Nope, I said. They just screamed. I put the snake back in the clubhouse. After what had happened, I knew that the snake would be a lot happier if I set it free. At dinner, I told the family of my decision. That's the right thing to do, said my dad. The next morning, I took the snake to the park and said goodbye. I felt sad, but if I ever wanted to see it again, I was sure I could find it. After all, we were friends. The next day, Professor Stern's wiener dog got loose. We chased him, snuck into the clubhouse, and stole the dinosaur bone, but he outran us. Oh, I read that backwards. Oh. It wasn't long afterwards that we let all the newts, salamanders, and other creatures go and ended the Dangerous Snake and Reptile Club. Then we found a meteor in Mrs. Gray's backyard, and we turned the clubhouse into Space Station Mars. Days with Frog and Toad. Tomorrow. Toad woke up. Drat, he said. The house is a mess. I have so much work to do. Frog looked through the window. Toad, you are right, said Frog. It is a mess. Toad pulled the covers over his head. I will do it tomorrow, said Toad. Today I will take life easy. Frog came into the house. Toad, said Frog, your pants and jacket are lying on the floor. Tomorrow, said Toad, from under the covers. Your kitchen sink is filled with dirty dishes, said Frog. Tomorrow, said Toad. There is dust on your chairs. Tomorrow, said Toad. Your windows need scrubbing, said Frog. Your plants need watering. Tomorrow, cried Toad. I will do it all tomorrow. Toad sat on the edge of his bed. Blah, said Toad. I feel down in the dumps. Why? Asked Frog. I am thinking about tomorrow, said Toad. I am thinking about all the many things that I will have to do. Yes, said Frog. Tomorrow will be a very hard day for you. But, Frog, said Toad, if I pick up my pants and jacket right now, then I will not have to pick them up tomorrow, will I? No, said Frog. You will not have to. Toad picked up his clothes. He put them in the closet. Frog, said Toad, if I wash my dishes right now, then I will not have to wash them tomorrow, will I? No, said Frog. You will not have to. Toad washed and dried his dishes. He put them in the cupboard. Frog, said Toad, if I dust my chairs and scrub my windows and water my plants right now, then I will not have to do it tomorrow, will I? No, said Frog. You will not have to do it tomorrow. Toad dusted his chairs, he scrubbed his windows, he watered his plants. There, said Toad. Now I feel better. I am not in the dumps anymore. Why? Asked Frog. Because I have done all that work, said Toad. Now I can save tomorrow for something that I really want to do. What is that? Asked Frog. Tomorrow, said Toad, I can just take life easy. Toad went back to bed. He pulled the covers over his head and fell asleep. The kite. Frog and Toad went out to fly a kite. They went to a large meadow where the wind was strong. Our kite will fly up and up, said Frog. It'll fly all the way up to the top of the sky. Toad, said Frog, I will hold the ball of string. You hold the kite and run. Toad ran across the meadow. He ran as fast as his short legs could carry him. The kite went up in the air. It fell to the ground with a bump. Toad heard laughter. 3 robins were sitting in a bush. The kite will not fly, said the robins. You may as well give up. Toad ran back to Frog. Frog, said Toad, this kite will not fly. I give up. We must make a second try, said Frog. Wave the kite over your head. Perhaps that will make it fly. Toad ran back across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head. The kite went up in the air, and then fell down with a thud. What a joke, said the robins. That kite will never get off the ground. Toad ran back to Frog. This kite is a joke, he said. It'll never get off the ground. We have to make a third try, said Frog. Wave the kite over your head and jump up and down. Perhaps that will make it fly. Toad ran across the meadow again. He waved the kite over his head. He jumped up and down. The kite went up in the air and crashed down into the grass. That kite is junk, said the robins. Throw it away and go home. Toad ran back to Frog. The kite is junk, he said. I think we should throw it away and go home. Toad, said Frog, we need one more try. Wave the kite over your head. Jump up and down and shout up, kite, up. Toad ran across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head. He jumped up and down. He shouted, up, kite, up. The kite flew into the air. It climbed higher and higher. We did it, cried Toad. Yes, said Frog. If a running try did not work, and a running and waving try did not work, and a running, waving, and jumping try did not work, I knew that a running, waving, jumping, and shouting try just had to work. The robins flew out the bush, but they could not fly as high as the kite. Frog and Toad sat and watched their kite. It seemed to be flying way up to the top of the sky. Do you want me to read all of these? They're like several little stories.
Yeah, read all of them.
Okay. Shivers. The night was cold and dark. Listen to the wind howling in the trees, said Frog. What a fine time for a ghost story. Toad moved deeper into his chair. Toad, asked Frog, don't you like to be scared? Don't you like to feel the shivers? I am not too sure, said Toad. Frog made a fresh pot of tea. He sat down and he began a story. When I was small, said Frog, my mother and father and I went out for a picnic. On the way home, we lost our way. My mother was worried. We must get home, she said. We do not want to meet the old dark frog. Who is that? I asked. A terrible ghost, said my father. He comes out at night and eats the little frog children for supper. Toad sipped his tea. Frog, he asked, are you making this up? Maybe yes and maybe no, said Frog. My mother and father went to search for a path, said Frog. They told me to wait until they came back. I sat under a tree and waited. The woods became dark. I was afraid. Then I saw 2 huge eyes. It was the old dark frog. He was standing near me. Frog, asked Toad, did this really happen? Maybe it did, and maybe it didn't, said Frog. Frog went on with the story. The dark frog pulled a jump rope out of his pocket. I am not hungry now, said the dark frog. I have eaten too many tasty frog children. But after I jump rope 100 times, I will be hungry again, and then I will eat you. The dark frog tied one end of the rope to a tree. Turn for me, he shouted. I turned the rope for the dark frog. He jumped 20 times. I'm beginning to get hungry, said the dark frog. He jumped 50 times. I am getting hungrier, said the dark frog. He jumped 90 times. I am very hungry now, said the dark frog. What happened then? Asked Toad. I had to save my life, said Frog. I ran around and around the tree with a rope. I tied up the old dark frog. He roared and screamed. I ran away fast. I found my mother and father, said Frog. We came safely home. Frog, asked Toad, was that a true story? Maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't, said Frog. Frog and Toad sat close by the fire. They were scared. The teacups shook in their hands. They were having the shivers. It was a good, warm feeling. The hat. On Toad's birthday, Frog gave him a hat. Toad was delighted. Happy birthday, said Frog. Toad put on the hat. It fell down over his eyes. I am sorry, said Frog. That hat is much too big for you. I will give you something else. No, said Toad. This hat is your present to me. I like it. I will wear it just the way it is. Frog and Toad went for a walk. Toad tripped over a rock. He bumped into a tree. He fell into a hole. Frog, said Toad, I can't see anything. I will not be able to wear your beautiful present. This is a sad birthday for me. Frog and Toad were sad for a while. Then Frog said, Toad, here is what you must do. Tonight when you go to bed, you must think some very big thoughts. Those big thoughts will make your head grow larger in the morning. Your new hat may fit. What a good idea, said Toad. That night when Toad went to bed, he thought the biggest thoughts that he could think. Toad thought about giant sunflowers. He thought about tall oak trees. He thought about high mountains covered with snow. Then Toad fell asleep. Frog came into Toad's house. He came in quietly. Frog found the hat and took it into his house. Frog poured some water on the hat. He put the hat in a warm place to dry. It began to shrink. The hat grew smaller and smaller. Frog went back to Toad's house. Toad was still fast asleep. Frog put the hat back on the hook where he found it. When Toad woke up in the morning, he put his hat on his head. It was just the right size. Toad ran to Frog's house. Frog, Frog, he cried. All those big thoughts have made my head much larger. Now I can wear your present. Frog and Toad went for a walk. Toad did not trip over a rock. He did not bump into a tree. He did not fall into a hole. It turned out to be a very pleasant day after Toad's birthday. Alone. Toad went to Frog's house. He found a note on the door. The note said, Dear Toad, I am not at home. I went out. I want to be alone. Alone? Said Toad. Frog has me for a friend. Why does he want to be alone? Toad looked through the windows. He looked in the garden. He did not see Frog. Toad went to the woods. Frog was not there. He went to the meadow. Frog was not there. Toad went down to the river. There was Frog. He was sitting on an island all by himself. Poor Frog, said Toad. He must be very sad. I will cheer him up. Toad ran home. He made sandwiches. He made a pitcher of iced tea. He put everything in a basket. Toad hurried back to the river. Frog, he shouted, it's me. It's your best friend, Toad. Frog was too far away to hear. Toad took off his jacket and waved it like a flag. Frog was too far away to see. Toad shouted and waved, but it was no use. Frog sat on the island. He did not see or hear Toad. A turtle swam by. Toad climbed onto the turtle's back. Turtle, said Toad, carry me to the island. Frog is there. He wants to be alone. If Frog wants to be alone, said the turtle, why don't you leave him alone? Maybe you are right, said Toad. Maybe Frog does not want to see me. Maybe he does not want me to be his friend anymore. Yes, maybe, said the turtle, as he swam to the island. Frog, cried Toad, I am sorry for all the dumb things I do. I am sorry for all the silly things I say. Please be my friend again. Toad slipped off the turtle. With a splash, he fell in the river. Frog pulled Toad up onto the island. Toad looked in the basket. The sandwiches were wet. The pitcher of iced tea was empty. Our lunch is spoiled, said Toad. I made it for you, Frog, so that you would be happy. But Toad, said Frog, I am happy. I am very happy. This morning when I woke up, I felt good because the sun was shining. I felt good because I was a frog. And I felt good because I have you for a friend. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to think about how fine everything is. Oh, said Toad, I guess that is a very good reason for wanting to be alone. Now, said Frog, I will be glad not to be alone. Let's eat lunch. Frog and Toad stayed on the island all afternoon. Froggy bakes a cake. It was Froggy's mother's birthday. Froggy was outside making mud pies. Froggy, called his father. What? Help me bake a cake for your mother. Oh, please, cried Froggy. I want to do it all by myself. So Froggy flopped into the kitchen. Flop, flop, flop. You'll need flour, said his father, and sugar and chocolate. I know, cried Froggy. And he pushed his chair against the counter and climbed up. He took down the flour, he took down the sugar, he took down all the chocolate candy his mother had hidden since Halloween. We need lots of flour and sugar, said Froggy, and he dumped a large bag of flour and a whole box of sugar into a big yellow bowl. We need lots and lots of chocolates, said Froggy, and he dumped in 10 handfuls of chocolate-covered flies. We need milk, too, said Froggy's father. I know, cried Froggy. And he flopped to the fridge, flop, 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 and grabbed a carton of milk. Oops, it dropped on his foot and spilled. And eggs and butter, added his father. I know, cried Froggy. He snatched a carton of eggs. Oops, he only broke 4 or 5, and just 1 stick of butter fell on the floor. Don't forget the baking powder, said his father. I know, cried Froggy, and he climbed up and took down the baking powder. Then he cracked 7 eggs into the bowl, crack, 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 and only a few shells fell in. And he put in the butter, blurp, and poured in the milk, glub, glub, glub. And finally, he dumped in the whole box of baking powder. Shoop. Time to mix it all together, said his father. I know, cried Froggy. And he stirred it and slopped it and mixed it and plopped it. Then he dumped all the goopy cake batter into a cake pan. And he shoved the cake into the oven and he sang, Oogly boogly burbly bake. I make and I bake and I wait for the cake. Froggy, called his father. What? While you wait for the cake to bake, help me blow up the balloons. Froggy helped to blow up the balloons. He blew, and he blew, and he blew, and he blew. Pop! Now, said his father, help me set the table. Froggy helped set the table. Oops! He knocked over the lemonade, and the paper party tablecloth got all wet. Froggy, called his mother. What? What smells so good? It's a surprise, yelled Froggy, and he flopped back to the kitchen. Flop, flop, flop. Come and get it, hollered Froggy. Froggy's mother and father flopped in and slid across the buttery floor, and Froggy said, Are you ready? And opened the oven door. Yikes! The cake exploded, yelped Froggy's father. Oops, cried Froggy, looking more red in the face than green. Too much baking powder, I guess. It's good, though, said his father, licking his fingers. Wait, cried Froggy. I'll be right back. Flop, flop, flop. Happy birthday, Mom, he said, and he handed her a fresh mud pie with a candle in it. I made it all by myself. Oh, Froggy, said his mother, this is the best birthday pie I ever had. What a mess, said Froggy's father. Let's go out to celebrate. Great, said Froggy. Yes, said Froggy's mother. And together they leapfrogged all the way to the bakery. Flop, flop, flop.